Hi, my name's Tony and I'm from the Supco, and today I'm going to walk you through the Starboard 12'6" generation in lite-tech. So here it is, the Starboard 12'6" generation, and this particular model is the 12'6" by 28 249 litre version of the Starboard generation in the lite-tech construction. And well, I say this particular model, and that's because since its introduction to the Starboard lineup a couple of years ago now, this being the original size and shape of the generation, well, it's grown a lot because this board has proven to be just so popular. So the 12'6" is available in a couple of different widths. You've also got the 14-foot as well. That's available at a few different widths. But for me personally, and the reason why this board, we still have it in our test center here, is, well, just how versatile this board is, and still today, just how popular the 12'6" by 28 generation is. There's a number of reasons and factors down to the overall popularity of the generation as a board range, and that's simply its versatility. So often we find, particularly when people start to go down the composite and hard paddleboard route, it's all about compromise. It's about finding boards that are a little bit nichey, bit more specialist. So by that I mean you'll have someone who come into the store and they will invariably say, I want a surf kind of orientated SUP, something around those lines. So we're going to talk around a slightly smaller board from Starboard. That will be a wedge. You might go down to an element or a pocket rocket even, and you end up being more and more focused and ultimately compromising on general all-round paddling and performance. You go the other way and you could end up down the route of a Starboard Sprint, so a very dedicated flat water high performance board. And this is, for me, it's all about compromise. And ultimately, as we see people growing in stand-up paddleboarding, starting to take on not only just one board, but they may have 2 or 3 boards in a quiver as such, really trying to hit different facets of their own paddling needs, the generation kind of stands out alone, not only in the Starboard range, but I would say out there in the paddleboard market as a whole, in that it's a board that represents very, very little compromise in a really broad range of areas. It's a really versatile board. It's a Swiss Army knife. It just does so much for a very broad range of paddlers. The board, ultimately, it surfs well, which on a 12'6" by 28 wide board, it's not something we'd ever thought we'd say, but it genuinely does. It paddles well in flat water. For me personally, I really enjoy paddling this board downwind. It rides bumps beautifully. It's playful. It's stable. It's just an awful lot of fun. And the nice thing with the generation lineup as well is that Starboard ultimately use their lite-tech construction as an option. There is the carbon top as well. That comes at a significant premium for a slight weight saving. But for us, really, it's the lite-tech range, and this is why this board's in our demo and test center. There is also a 14-foot generation in our demo and test center as well. But it is this board that really stands out for that because of the lite-tech construction. And lite-tech, well, it doesn't, again, it's something that doesn't really compromise. You're not giving up an awful lot in terms of performance. It's hitting a price point that, again, we still haven't seen others able to hit. And it represents a lot of bang for buck. So look, let's run you through from the boards from the nose down to the tail, as we do in all of our videos here at the SUP company. So it is the nose that really plays a big factor into the overall performance of this board, and it's one of those things that makes it so playful downwind and give it a lot of ability to ride bumps so readily, and that's the rocker line in this board. And it is very generous, but not too much so in order to compromise flat water performance. But you're not going to lose the nose. If you do find it pearls in the back of a wave, it's going to pick up, it's going to dig itself out, and if it's a really big sea state, ultimately there's sufficient volume within the nose that it's going to generate enough lift and drive it skyward ultimately and see you right. The overall width of the board though fills out very, very quickly, and that provides a lot of stability. There are other factors at play, and we'll come onto that as we take the board and roll it over, so you can see the shaping that's gone into the underside of the generation that also really does impact upon its stability. But it is a stable board to paddle, so at 28 inches wide, don't be deterred. But as you come back down, yeah, you've got this really nice, clean aesthetic I like the lite-tech construction from Starboard. The aesthetic itself is quite clean, it's simple, it does actually in the flesh, I'm not sure if it's going to come across on camera, but it's a very high gloss finish on the rails. I like that, I like how that looks, I like how it feels. It feels premium, but not at a premium price point. I guess if I was being niggly though, the only one thing I'd say about the rails is, well, with them being so glossy finish, we see it quite quickly in our test center here. I'd rail tape it if it was my own board, and in fact, we should rail tape them in our test center, to be quite honest with you. It just keeps everything looking tight and pristine. As you come back down the board, you've then got the cargo net. And the cargo net is small, does the job. It's going to allow you to put a dry bag underneath, drinks bottles, some footwear and what have you. But it's certainly going to serve the purpose. And really, you're going to be out on the board for a day, and you can paddle this board for a day easily. It's going to give you that little bit of storage that you need. Working our way back down again though, you've got the self-regulating valve. These now you don't need to touch because there's a small Gore-Tex filter in there as well. So it's just allowing the inside of the board to breathe as it kind of heats up and cools down. And then you come back down to here, which is a really generous crocodile skin EVA deck pad. It's really comfortable on the foot. It's quite thick, it drains really well. And the board itself, it has a slight concave in the deck. So you end up feeling quite locked into this board, and it's a really nice feel, particularly as you start to work your way around it, and the generation really is very, very rewarding once you start to move around on the surface of the board and get it really to work underneath your feet. But it provides you that little bit of a secure feeling as well, and it's a really nice touch from Starboard. That concave runs all the way back down towards the back end of the board here, and you finish out with a pad there on the tail, slight raise in the back, so you're not going to kind of come off the back of the board, and it's going to enable you to work out where your footwork is. You also find the actual deck pad itself changes to this larger diamond cut crocodile skin finish, so there's that little bit of EVA there to kind of help you interpret where you are on the board. As you do work your way down the tail of the board though, that's where the generation really starts to come into its own, because the tail starts to get much, much narrower, and the board as a result starts to become really, really responsive, and that leads to a lot of fun, particularly when downwinding, particularly when trying to get the board to kind of turn and play in small waves. It just works and it just responds, and it's really, really lively for what is a big board at 12'6" overall. Yes, there is some swing weight to that board, so because it's so long, ultimately it's going to play within surf. Yes, there is some swing weight there, so you are going to have to control it, but it's not too heavy, the board, albeit, you know, it's a cheaper construction from Starboard. It doesn't come at the expense of weight, the lite-tech construction. And it's, as I said already, it's a really nice quality finish. So the underside of the board, and you may get an idea as to the rocker now here also, but it's on the underside of the board where Starboard have really kind of paid a lot of attention to and spent a fair amount of time in terms of the shaping overall. Now on the bottom of the Starboard generation, you end up with a double concave, and that's separated basically by a ridge that runs the center line of the board, and that almost creates kind of like the feeling of a trimaran sailing boat, in that you end up with a lot of secondary stability in the generation. So once it starts to go over on its rail, you'll find there's a fair amount of resistance underfoot, and that's the board pushing back against you. And it just, once you start to get your head around it, you really start to grow in the confidence in the generation and just your overall ability to kind of throw the board around. And that's when it really, as I say, it starts to become really rewarding and really starts to come into its own. As you follow the underside of the board all the way back though, the concaves really start to get much deeper underneath the main standing area of the board. That also plays a factor with tracking and just helps they effectively become quite deep channels to keep the board straight and true. As you work your way down though, the underside of the deck starts to flatten out, or the underside of the board rather starts to flatten out towards the fin box. And we find that we've not just got a center fin, but we've got a thruster fin set up on this board. And that provides a lot of grip when surfing, and it just makes this board all the more secure and playful underneath you when you are in some surf. So who's the generation for? Well, if you're a paddler who wants a board, almost a one quiver board, well, the generation, I would argue, is the board for you. It stands alone in the stand-up paddleboard market. There's very little out there, if at all, that really offers the same level of ability, depth, really, and breadth of use that the generation does. If you are, for example, someone out there on, say, you're transitioning from a 10'6" inflatable paddleboard and you're looking for your first hardboard, something that's going to allow you to still progress your paddling skills, explore different facets of paddleboarding, whether that be small surf, downwinding, playing in slightly more challenging conditions, but still have that ability to fall back to paddling on your local river or inland waterway, well, the generation will work and deliver for you. It really is that good a board, and it will work for a broad range of paddlers, 249 litres, all encompassing in a 12.6 by 28. If you are a larger paddler, well, take a look and you want some more volume, you've got this at a wider width, you've got the 14 foot as well, so you've got options there also. If you're wanting more stability, you've now, in the generation lineup, you've got options there also with the wider widths. So yeah, it has to be on your shortlist if you are looking for a one board quiver, and it just works. Come see us down at our test centre, come paddle it for yourself and find out just how good the Starboard generation is. Thanks for watching our video. If you've got any questions about what you've seen, why not give us a call in the shop or head over to thesupco.com. To stay up to date though with all of our videos, well, make sure you subscribe up here and hit the notification bell. But to see our next video, well, take a look up here.